Well, with far over 3,000 published studies on PubMed on melatonin and cancer, the person who reads between the lines gets suspicious. Ask yourself, would they do over 3,000 studies on a molecule that has no impact at all? Certainly not. It turns out that melatonin is the biggest antioxidant ever discovered. All these studies on melatonin and cancer have two things in common. One, miraculously, they end all with the same sentence. Melatonin seems to be promising in prevention as well as healing cancer A, B, C, D. But more studies need to be done. And two, basically all experiments on mice and rats have been conducted with pretty high doses of melatonin in comparison to the body weight of the respective mouse. These were not 3 milligrams, as most people take it for better sleeping, but much higher doses. To part one, we can agree that we live in a world with huge conflicts of interests. Knowing this, we can assume that this sentence would still be there if there were 10 times more studies on melatonin and cancer conducted, and the number would climb to over 30,000. Personally, if a molecule has such a profound antioxidant impact that it might stop or prevent cancer, and the writing is on the wall all over the place, this would be my single reason to go for it. But that is just me. And what does that have to do with a dog that was given melatonin at daytime? Well, there is overwhelming evidence that cancer cells are inactive at night, or sleep at night, if you will, and they are active and grow in the daytime. The reason for this is not because you're sleeping at night. The reason is because you have melatonin in your system at night. This melatonin is being produced by your pineal gland. Some experts in the field of high doses of melatonin suggest that it would make sense to give melatonin even at daytime for certain cancer patients in order to stop cancer growth. Word of caution: if you decide to do so, do not drive a car or operate any machinery because your reaction time will be slowed down. And you should use a method other than taking it orally, since you want a slow and constant release throughout the day. Patches are ideal. You can have them on all day long for 8 hours and longer if you wish so. In the following, please listen carefully to what happened to Dr. Gundry's dog, who was diagnosed with bladder cancer. After that, hear what Professor Reiter has to say on this very same subject. He has dedicated the past 40 years to the research of melatonin and has written countless books and scientific papers on the subject of high doses of melatonin. Have a listen.
We've known for a number of years that shift workers, people who work night shifts and evening shifts, have far greater rates of chronic disease, whether it's diabetes, whether it's cancer. And we've known that this is partially because of a circadian rhythm problem, that we're supposed to be awake during sunlight and we're supposed to be asleep during darkness. We now know that there are only 2 actual antioxidants in mitochondria that have any effect. And one of them is melatonin. The second is glutathione. So we're now learning that melatonin is actually a major mitochondrial repair hormone. And rather than think of melatonin as a sleep hormone, because melatonin comes out at night when you go to sleep, we should be thinking of melatonin as a repair hormone that's produced during sleep, because that's when mitochondria should be actually quieting down and going through reparation and repair functions. And there's some very fascinating evidence that one of the reasons people who are deficient in melatonin or have poor sleep or who are shift workers have much more incidence of cancer is that melatonin is very suppressive of cancer growth. In fact, some fascinating evidence that cancer cells grow during the daylight and stop growing at night. And we think it's because of the presence of melatonin at night. And I talk about some of my patients and my dog, who I give remarkably high dose melatonin for what was inoperable bladder cancer. And a year and a half later, she's doing great. So, yeah,
But melatonin, in my opinion, should be more widely used because of the misuse of light, and especially during aging. There's just so much experimental evidence that would suggest that we could reduce the untoward health effects that we experience with aging by supplementing with melatonin. Animal studies unequivocally show that deferring age-related diseases is possible with melatonin. Not only cancer, neurodegenerative diseases. I'm just writing a paper now on Alzheimer's and melatonin. I always take it at night.
Okay.
Before bedtime, because that's the time melatonin would normally be increasing. I have taken melatonin during the day, and there's justification for that. Again, this isn't a recommendation necessarily, but we know that the cancer cell metabolism is different at night than during the day. It has a better positive metabolism at night that's directly related to the availability of melatonin. So cancer cells in some regards are more cancerous during the day than they are at night. And they are less cancerous at night because they are exposed to melatonin, which changes their metabolism, called the Warburg effect. So in some cancer cases, it may be worthwhile to take melatonin during the day. Seems to be determine the amount of melatonin, that is the rate limiting and called N-acetyltransferase, or alkylalamine N-acetyltransferase. A very important cofactor is required for that step, and that is acetyl coenzyme A. Well, acetyl coenzyme A is produced in mitochondria from pyruvate, and cancer cells and many other pathological cells exclude pyruvate from the mitochondria, and we predicted a number of years ago that they would have less melatonin in their mitochondria, and we now know, we have a paper in press showing that that's exactly the case. They only produce about half. Acetyl-CoA can be produced by some other routes, fatty acid oxidation in the mitochondria and so forth, but they don't not produce as much melatonin as we think they should. And since melatonin is an anti-cancer agent, if these cancer cells are not producing melatonin or enough melatonin, that may also contribute to the fact that they grow out of control. So
thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe for more to come. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out our other videos for more fascinating insights. See you next time.